Well, a New Jersey senator is calling for a limited state of emergency after numerous sightings of mysterious drones over the state. The FBI has been investigating the reports, which they have been receiving for over a month. Authorities in New Jersey insist sightings of SUV-sized drones don't pose a threat to public safety. But military analysts say the lack of clear answers from the government points to a larger problem. Dr. Malcolm Davis is a senior analyst in defense strategy and capability at ASPI, and he joins us now. Malcolm Davis, welcome to the program. Now, there are 49 reports in New Jersey of drones sighted across that state. A bit of a mystery, but what do you make of these incidents?
Look, I think it is virtually certain these things are drones or in many cases, aircraft that have been misidentified as drones. There's a lot of activity on what's known as hashtag UAP Twitter that somehow these things have an extraterrestrial connection, but that's simply not true. These things are man-made. They are drones. The interesting question in my mind is who is operating these things? I was recently in the United Kingdom where there are similar drone sightings over US military bases. And the concern has to be that these things could be a national security challenge, particularly if these drones are being operated by a foreign state adversary, such as China or Russia. So I think the real question is, are they being operated by a foreign state actor? If so, what is their purpose? And a key question in my mind is, why doesn't the US military bring one of these things down using counter-drone technologies to identify and gather more intelligence on what these things are?
Yeah, so if this is military related, how much will we actually ever find out about these sightings?
Oh, look, I think that if it's clear that these are being operated by a foreign adversary such as China or Russia, the US government would have no reason not to tell people that that's the case, if only to shut down the speculation on social media about their origin. And I think, you saw the instance of China flying that reconnaissance balloon over the United States a year or so ago. That was very clearly identified. US military made it clear that it was a Chinese reconnaissance balloon. There's no reason why the US military or the US government could not do the same thing on this occasion, particularly when you have these drones operating over key US military sites. And I think that has to be the real concern, is when you have drones operating over key bases in the US, but also around the world.
Yeah, can you tell us, the use of these drones, what sort of advantages do they have over, more highly advanced satellites that many countries have possession in space?
Well, a satellite is operating up at high orbit, so in other words, low Earth orbit, from around about 250 kilometers out to 1,500 kilometers. And while satellites can see a great deal these days, the very nature of the orbits that they're in and the speed that they're operating at in terms of moving across the Earth's surface means that sometimes they're not as effective in getting a low altitude, long endurance surveillance of a particular location as compared to, say, a platform operating inside Earth's atmosphere. They used to have an aircraft, for example, called the SR-71 Blackbird that operated up at 80,000 feet that would give surveillance of Soviet missile locations from within the Earth's atmosphere. That was replaced by satellites. But now there's a clear case that sometimes you need a lower altitude gaze. And so drones would give the ability to undertake that surveillance at lower altitudes for long endurance, particularly over key air bases, and not just take photos, but to gather electronic intelligence and signals intelligence. And so you could have a large drone operating over an airbase, gathering all sorts of intelligence. That, to me, is the most likely explanation for these types of objects.
And could these sort of be piloted perhaps by even lone actors that operate in a more clandestine manner?
Absolutely. We're seeing what's known as first-person view drones, which are small commercial drones that are very maneuverable, can move at high speed. These could be operated by individuals on the ground purely to essentially see if they can penetrate the airspace of US military bases, or indeed just to gain attention. And I think that's probably what you're seeing to some extent in New Jersey, where you have operators flying these small drones, people seeing them in the night sky, not sure what they are. And so it generates a degree of unfortunate hysteria, which I think is really clouding the subject. So I do think we need to focus on the higher end threat of adversary states operating the larger drones over military bases and try and distinguish those from these lower end FPV drones that are probably causing confusion everywhere.
And of course, some experts have also noted that these drones resemble something called drone motherships that were deployed in Ukraine, Russia and China. Do you think that's the case as well?
It's a possibility. And if they are being operated by foreign actors, then part of the role that these things could be doing is essentially training for these foreign actors to be able to utilize drones in attacks on these bases. But the key question in my mind then is, how are these foreign actors getting these drones to these locations? Where are they launching them from? Where are they recovering them from? Because these drones have to fly from somewhere and return to somewhere. So I don't understand why the US military is not gathering more intelligence, not bringing one down, not tracking them and following them to find their point of origin. There's a series of questions there that need to be further addressed in my mind.
And, in defense circles, Malcolm, I would assume that there is talk about regulatory moves in countries to basically stop these drones from operating in at least certain perimeters around more sensitive areas. Is that being talked about a lot in defense circles at the moment?
Oh, certainly. And, these regulations are in place, but ultimately regulations can't stop the actions of a foreign state that is willing just to simply launch these drones and fly them into our airspace. Nor can they necessarily stop an individual that has a drone in his or her possession and then uses them to violate those regulations. So regulations are there, but if they can't be enforced easily or rapidly, then it becomes really difficult for the regulations to be effective.
Okay, the one thing that we do know is that these are not UFOs. Malcolm Davies, thank you so much for your time and your analysis.
Thank you very much.